what I heard was that, and I know this from all the years that I worked between nonprofits and governments, is that the government wants to identify someone who's going to take the responsibility.
That's right.
They're not just going to give it
Yes.
to someone who next week decides they're not a group
Do
anymore.
that.
So that's what I think he was saying, Dave. Unfortunately, the way that you said it, it kind of sounded different. So, you know, if we could just clear that up, I think that's gone a long way to have started all of this. To be honest with you, keep hearing this over and over again.
Thank you for putting that in different.
With respect,
Randy.
wait, Randy was
I
called on.
rose my hand prematurely.
Yeah.
I do agree with a lot of the things Tony said up until the point where he wanted to fire the board. I did not sign up for that. But I was just agreeing with a lot of the things, which I believe everybody in this room is. We just want transparency. We're
Right.
kind of new, we're green, we're getting there. Like Ben said, this is great. I think if we just keep doing this and find ways of getting meeting minutes posted or something, as long as we're all in the know, we'll all be a lot better.
And we're working on that too. I'm gonna.
But I was with that, you know, it is important for the community to have a voice, and it's sounding like the board does not give that to the community. And I think a lot of people would not be so angry. And if we saw that there has been elections, we've only been seeing appointments between each other. We have not had the community come and actually vote. I hear that that is the problem. And I'm new here, but that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. So let me just say that the last election up here, I think it was the same time as the bond, was the last election, and Dave Dry was the only one, or his spot that he's in, was the only one up for election. Since that time, we've had a board member unfortunately die. We've had a board member quit prematurely. So those, until the board up here is so small that the county will not hold a special election for a 3-person board, because it actually costs us money. So if we were to ask for one and say, hey, we want to do it, it's a couple $1,000s for the county to print ballots and do all the stuff that they have to do legally. Yeah, but to do it and then canvass the results go out. So they don't want to do that. So they usually wait till the next election, as long as that person was properly seated, which is what I said earlier, properly seated by the board. So there's an application process. People had put in applications. They had people that they could call and interview, and they appointed the board, the current board.
Anyone who wants.
Yeah, but they appointed that next person. So I get what you're saying, because the next election, I believe, is in 2024, and there's 2 seats up for that election. So the 2 gentlemen at the end, their seats are up. So if you want to run, if you want to, put in for the board, I encourage you to do so if you're civic minded and want to do that. But that'll be the next election. So if somebody else, God forbid, has a medical emergency or quits or whatever, they'll be appointed again up until the election in 2024. So.
What I have found is that trying to find somebody that wants one of these positions, I spent well over 6 months trying to for me when I was in my 5th year on the board. Wow. Mostly what I heard was no way. Dave said yes. That's why he's here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Dave.
You do realize that it's a volunteer position.
Sir, do you want to speak?
Well, I have a question. Did anybody here vote for Mr. Drive? Do you remember having an election?
Oh my God, we just went over that.
Does the board vote themselves?
No, sir. No, his position was an actual general election, and I think the bond was on the same election, so it would have been a board seat and the bond and all those other things for all the questions for Crown County.
So who's hidden within that?
Kathy. Yes.
I just wanted to let everybody know that everyone in here has a voice in the fire department. All you have to do is simply contact them with any concern or question that you have, and they have the option to put it on the agenda for discussion. It shouldn't be out there on Facebook and private meetings and this and that.
Thank
I mean,
you.
this is the forum to do that, and granted, yes, maybe it needs to move to a weekend so that everybody that's working Monday through Friday can attend, but people also work Saturday and Sunday.
Dave, to maybe address Taryn's concern about losing the equity in the fire department by moving up to PNF property. has there been, you said there was an initial 5-year term, right?
Correct, it's a mutual aid agreement.
Okay, so has there been any consideration or research done on maybe moving there temporarily and then upgrading this facility to where it has septic, to where it has everything that's necessary to be able to operate like it would there? And then we would still have the equity, and the property would be owned by the fire district.
Right, and that's a good question. And we actually received an answer from that this morning. The grant is specific that it is for building a new station on the PNF property. And point blank, well, Scott asked point blank this morning, if we want to change that, she said, then the grant is null and void. And the reason for that, probably that we were even awarded the grant, was because we're taking one government entity and associating it with a mutual agreement lease to another. So they all work in tandem. Our problem has been obtaining the long-term lease because of red tape and because there was a miscommunication on how this should be done and the steps that should be taken. So it went to Albuquerque for approval. It came back and Albuquerque said, no, you need a mutual aid agreement. Then you go into the 30-year lease, and then it's basically a binding thing. We have representatives from the federal government that are right behind our application and what's happened at Albuquerque. And trust me, if this is going to get done. We have a lot of support. We really do.
And that's the reason why we got the grant in the first place. And I don't know, Chief, I don't know if you wrote, Senator Kelly's office told me this morning, because this is the reason why you got the grant in the first place, is because you're going to the Forest Service. Because they have the septic, they have the power, they have the space, they have the fuel depot, they have the hose thing. I think Lewis showed me what the hose thing was. Okay, and you know, they said the Forest Service had everything that you needed. That's why we gave you this grant. If you guys are gonna move it to somebody's backyard or try to upgrade this, we're not gonna do it. So we would lose our 900 grand.
I understand that completely, and thank you for that clarity. I guess my other concern then would be, we're going to pay for improvements as residents, right, to a property that we don't own, and it's gonna exceed that $900,000 grant, and we may not reap the rewards on an investment sometime down the road. I mean, I plan on being here for a long period of time. I'm not a full-time resident yet, but that's our plan. And so I'm just looking at the future.
Who are you?
My name's Todd Garrett.
Todd, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So Todd,
So that's my only concern.
One of the things when I was talking to Senator Kelly's office this morning, she said that, look, we've got this 5-year thing and plan why we rewrite the lease for you guys to take care of this. And she said the same thing, kind of parroted what Dave said earlier, says PNF doesn't want this land, they want to give it to us. So she goes, well, they're not gonna renege on anything, you're gonna get the land, you're gonna put your fire station there. She goes, the government will not, PNF will not come back on this and say, oh, we're gonna take it back.
Probably.
Guarantee.
There's no guarantees,
No,
taxes,
but sir,
whatever.
please,
Okay.
with
Okay.
all due
Right.
respect, I've been here for 50 years, and the Prescott National Forest was huge back then. We're lucky to get 1 or 2. They have abandoned us. How do you know that they're not gonna abandon us after we put $900,000 worth of their?
You just answered your own question. They have abandoned us. They want to give us that property.
Then give it to us and don't lease it.
We
Give it
are
to
working
us.
on that. It's the government, and it's a long process.
Okay, but
And it's a historical site.
And one of the problems is it's also a historical
No.
site.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that 200 years from now, we still don't have it. They will never give something permanently unless there's some kind of real twist of something
I
else.
understand that.
Right.
But I mean, but you do understand too that for them, you know, and not, there's no guarantees in life, there's no guarantees in anything. But there's also no other options that you have.
But if you were to lease a parcel anywhere else in this world, and you put $900,000 into it, that lease, the person that is leasing it to you can say, hey, see you later.
Can we shift gears for just a second, please, with one comment of mine? And that is, those of you who don't know me, my name is Kurt. Yes, I was recently appointed to a paid position on the fire department, but I've been rolling on your calls for over 10 years as a volunteer. Coming to your homes, treating your guests, treating your family members, and I love being of service. I love Crown King. The fact that a paid position opened up for me necessitated close to a year's worth of study and training under chief so that I was allowed to continue to serve your medical needs. Okay, so my horse in the race is nothing but service, and we get lost sight of the mission. The mission is your well-being and protecting your property. And you've got 3 or 4 dudes who are showing up to do that, and next to no volunteers. The only volunteers that we have left are some old timers who are still willing to get in the game, and they're on a razor's edge of, I don't want to do this anymore. So what we need are bodies who are willing, who understand the mission, and who are inspired to come to volunteer and help us out. Because we will not, you can spend all the money on all these apparatus and stuff, but if you don't have people who are willing to get in the game, get their hands dirty, get sweaty, then it's all for nothing, right? I don't care where you put the new facility. I really don't. I don't care about bathrooms, I don't care about garbage cans. I care about that we have enough people to answer the phone and come to your homes when you're cut up, when you're crashed, when you're bleeding, when you're sick, and that's not happening at all. And no one's talking about it. No one's talking about it.
Kurt, I mean, I agree with you, but I think to your point, the whole meeting has been about communication and transparency and democracy, right? Those are kind of the core things. And if those are kind of broken, right, it's not real attractive. I mean, we just said that hardly anybody ever goes for the board, right? Well, there's probably a reason for that.
Hardly anybody goes to the board meeting.
Or to the board meeting.
See these 3 seats right here? This is normally what these guys put up for every meeting, and usually there's nobody in them.
So it boils down to the mission and how much we care about each other. And if anybody's willing to sacrifice for anybody else. So if I've pissed any of you off in the past, I personally make amends for that. All right? Because we have so many skeletons buried here and so much infighting that a lot of times it's hard to get anything done. So if they'll let me, I'll start working harder to get volunteers, to train them, to show them appreciation. Because if we don't have that, then we don't have the ability to take care of this community. You guys go ahead and find out where the money is and how to spend it. But please, start thinking in terms of letting the past be the past, putting bygones behind us, and thinking about some of the folks that used to serve, who are certainly qualified, have mad skills that could help us, and getting them re-inspired to hate less and serve more. We need that, desperately.
Thank you, Kurt.
Well put. Taryn, to answer your question, you are absolutely correct. The government, myself and 1,000 Indian tribes would agree with you that the government can do whatever the heck it wants and do how it wants, right? I mean, just look back at our own history. So I agree. We are working on a long-term lease. We needed something to get to where we could break ground legally and start moving forward, and we are looking for a minimum of a 30-year lease that can be renewable. We're actually asking for a 99-year lease. You know, then it'll be somebody else's problem, 99 years, and that building be ready to be torn down. To answer your question, it's not going to be a Taj Mahal up there. There's going to be a steel build, it'll be a very Spartan building that's going to be up there, and we're going to try our hardest to come in under the 900,000. Honestly, the thing that will affect that is the amount of prep work, dirt work, moving boulders, stuff like that, that we would have to do. And that I don't know the cost of, right? The earth moving part of it. But everything else is close. Power is close, phone is close, internet's as close as it could be by satellite, and hooking up to the sewer. So keeping those costs down. And then to answer your question, sir, that we are on that property for $0 as long as we provide minor maintenance. So weed eating, trimming back the stuff. Anything that goes big on the buildings themselves, we can pay for it front and be reimbursed by PNF. So if there was a leak in the roof, we can fix the roof and then put the bill back to PNF to pay us back. So for us, the land is truly, other than the work of our guys, the labor of our folks up there on the property, it is truly free for us to use. Their labor is what pays for us to be there, yes.
Will you be going out for like an RFQ or IFP?
Oh, yeah, for the building? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
not only the building, but.
Oh, yeah, yeah, everything involved. So when we finally get rolling, now that we can, it'll be initially an RFQ for, an architect, right? To look at that, give us the plan, tell us what they think, and then every piece of that will have to be bid out from there. But at least that'll give us kind of a rough idea of what we're looking at. And a couple of the steel builders that we've looked at, there's one local here in PB, a couple others, those guys they have in-house architects, so if we choose one of them to give us a good plan we really like, their architect would work to do all that work and give us that. Here's what you need, here's the proposals that are needed, all of that stuff. And then for my fellas in the very back, just to let you know where I stand, I have over my life just miles enough to no head, right? I'm the chief of the department that takes your taxes to function, right? I hate taxes. I hate taxes with a passion. I don't like paying my own taxes, right? I just don't like going to jail either. So, I get where you're coming from. I absolutely abhor paying them, and to try and keep them as low as possible, to keep the district running as lean as possible, we will do. So just so you guys know, we have a two-person, some of our other stations are two-person down the mountain. Right now they have paramedics out of right now, but down the mountain. And it costs about $600,000 a year to staff 3 shifts, to do all the stuff that we do, to operate the trucks, pay for fuel, do all that. We're doing it up here for under $300,000. So half the cost of what we would do it anywhere else for, because these guys are willing to work the weirdest split shift schedule we've come up with yet, right? And they do it with a smile on their face, but that keeps your costs down. They are keeping your costs down because they have agreed to work that schedule, right? And they don't work a schedule like anywhere else in our entire department. They don't work a schedule like anybody else in this state, right? Just to let you guys know. And so you get that coverage, you get this level of service and dedication, and they've all been trained, and they have all of the certifications required to do this job safely, right? And do it professionally. And you're getting that for as cheap as we can get it to you without having paid people, right? Obviously, we could go cheaper if it was volunteer. But these guys are all trained. They meet every requirement that they have to meet to be here. And if I had an all-volunteer force, I can't guarantee you that they would meet that, because they have jobs, they have responsibilities, they have lives. And to get them to come in and meet those state mandates, to meet the federal mandates of what you have to do this job, there is a lot of training, right? The initial firefighter training is about 250 hours of time away from your family. That's not kind of being at work. Initial EMT training is about 300 hours of being away from your family. Hazmat training is another 100 hours. Then you have to recertify and refresh all of those things every year outside of your initial training. You want to go to paramedic school? That's 1,500 more hours of school and being away from your family to come here and work and do the job, and then to recertify that every 2 years to keep that level of training so you can continue to do the paramedic level skills. And that costs about another $1,000 a year if these guys were to go pay for those classes on their own every year to go continue to keep their continuing education up and to do that stuff. So there is a ton, I'm not saying the volunteers don't have dedication, but there is a ton of things that are required and mandated that makes it very difficult to volunteer your time. That's not a dig on anybody. You have to live, you have to eat, you have to have a roof over your head, right? So these guys are able to do it, get paid to do it, but in return, they have to put in all the class time and all the class work and all the things. So they continue to do that and just to stay so they can have a job. If they told me one day they don't want to do it, by the time those certifications expired, we'd have somebody to replace them, right? Because they have to go find a job somewhere else because it couldn't work for our organization. Yes, sir.
What are we doing to retain and recruit?
So Kurt just talked about it. We've been putting the word out. So if we got any local folks, obviously, that want to come volunteer, we'll provide training. The fire academy and the things that these guys did, we put on through the fire department. So we have a bunch of state trainers and stuff like that. So some things you can do here, some things you can't. So we did a little bit online. We sent instructors up the mountain here to do a bunch of the hands-on stuff. And then there's days where you have to go do live burns and things like that, actually fight fire. We had to take them those days down the mountain to go do it, but we replaced them with our firefighters who came up for the day and came up here and covered Crown King while we took all the Crown King firefighters off the mountain to go down. Now, having said that, now that the core group is trained, we don't ever have to strip the mountain of folks, pull them all off and bring a bunch of people up to cover, because they don't have to go next time. They're here, they can work their normal shifts, do their thing. Anybody else we bring on, they can just go to class. Right? So these guys kind of had a little extra burden, these first 4 or 5, maybe 5 here, right? But they had to do a little bit more. But so anyway, to answer your question, so we provide all the EMT training, we provide the firefighter and hazmat training we provide, and now we're working on getting the paramedic training in-house, so we can provide that as well.
I get